Good evening, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, I decided to do a little fight review. And I was not actually planning on doing a fight review for this because I did not think the fight would be big enough. Because I thought Jack Hermansson was possibly going to dominate the fight. I thought that this was a big step up in competition for Marvin Vettori, who really had not faced all that great of competitors in his last, however many fights. But when it came down to it, I have to say, sometimes I do get surprised in the fight game. And this was one of those moments where I did end up getting surprised. I did not expect Marvin Vettori to have that type of a fight with Jack Hermansson. Jack Hermansson has an excellent gas tank. He's decently powerful. He has very good wrestling skills and very good ground game. I was not expecting Marvin Vettori to put on the performance that he did. Now, this was a decently competitive fight. You could have scored this fight 4 rounds to 1 or 3 rounds to 2, with there possibly being one 10-8 round in the first round because Marvin Vettori did knock him down and beat him up in that first round. But this was a competitive fight. And I thought Jack Hermansson was maybe next in line to get a title shot. Marvin Vettori stopped all that. And when you talk about the middleweight division is debatably the most talented division out there. Besides possibly maybe the lightweight division, I would say the lightweight division is probably the most talented out there right now. But when you talk about, second place or, somewhere around there, it most likely is the middleweight division. It is what it is. And Marvin Vettori added on to that talent last night. Excuse me. So, what was I impressed with overall with Marvin Vettori? What do I think won him the fight? Well, let me tell you this. He he is a very good striker, and although I said that I thought Jack Hermansson was going to take him down to the ground, and I was not surprised when Jack Hermansson overall struck with him to begin with. That's sort of what I thought was going to happen. But what I was surprised about is that even when Jack Hermansson did try to take Marvin Vettori down, that's he really had very little success. There really was not a lot of success for Jack Hermansson, who is a very good grade wrestler. He is a very great wrestler, very good ground game guy. He had very little success against a guy in Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori had an excellent takedown defense, and I said that this was going to be a showcase fight for Marvin Vettori, and what I mean by that is that we were going to see really how great he was. And there's no doubt about it, Marvin Vettori is a great fighter. This was a great win. It was a great showcase, even though it was competitive. You really can't ask for much more than what Marvin Vettori did last night, especially because of the jump up in competition compared to his usual opponents that Jack Hermansson was. So I'm very impressed by what I've seen out of Marvin Vettori. And the things that I liked about Marvin Vettori is that he seemed defensively responsible. He has good power. He has decent hand speed. Very good counter puncher. Throws a decent amount of variety. Decent head movement, decent footwork, decent movement. The only weakness I seen out of Martin Vettori, was maybe he should have a better gas tank. The stamina does not seem to be A grade because after the second round, he did appear to tire out a little bit more. But with that being said, besides that, I cannot tell you a whole lot of weaknesses about Marvin Vettori because even when he was tired, he was decently defensively responsible. He had good head movement. He was still countering very well. The power was still there. So, it's very hard to criticize Marvin Vettori in this fight. Was he perfect? No. But for this being such a difference in classic competition that Marvin Vettori is not used to, I was very impressed here. So I have to give Marvin Vettori all the credit in the world. He proved me wrong. I predicted Jack Hermansson to win this fight by third round stoppage, and I was wrong. So it is what it is. And sometimes you are wrong. Sometimes certain fighters like this surprise you. That's how a lot of the next champions are born. Now, do I see Marvin Vettori becoming the next middleweight champion? we'll see. I'm not sure if I'm going to go that far. Israel Adesanya is a very complete fighter. I don't know of a lot of people that are going to be able to defeat someone like an Israel Adesanya, at least for a while. But Marvin Vettori is the last guy, besides Kelvin Gastelum, I suppose, to give him his toughest fight, even though that was one of his earliest fights. I thought Marvin Vettori maybe was just some guy that gave a champion early on in their career a very tough fight, because you have fighters that are like that, that'll give certain fighters a very tough fight early on in their career, but then they lose almost all their big fights. And Marvin Vettori is more than that. He just won the biggest fight of his, well, I wouldn't say the biggest fight of his career. Maybe that was against Israel Adesanya, but you can say maybe this was the biggest fight of his career, because Israel Adesanya was not as highly ranked back then as he is now. So it is what it is. But so you could say that as of right now, Marvin Vettori has won the biggest fight of his career, debatably. It is what it is. And what I mean by that is that, you could say that Jack Hermansson actually was the biggest fight of his career, not Israel, just because Jack Hermansson is more experienced here and he's higher ranked. All right, so it is what it is. There's no doubt that this is the biggest win of his career, no doubt about it. But, it is what it is. But anyway, I was very impressed. From what I heard, apparently he has called out Paulo Costa. I'm not sure how true that is. I did not hear him afterwards. But if that is true, if I were Paulo Costa, I would be very afraid of this guy. Both of them have power. But when I take a look at them, Marvin Vettori has the advantage in the skill set of almost everywhere against Paulo Costa. And to be quite honest with you, I think he would most likely stop Paulo Costa. And I'm not one of these guys saying, just because Paulo Costa lost his last fight, I'm not trying to jump on the bandwagon and saying, oh, well, Paulo Costa is just trash. That's not what I'm saying. But I was never overly impressed with Paulo Costa in the first place. He has a very tough time avoiding straight punches. I think he has a decent chin, but he can be hurt, as shown in the Uriah Hall fight and also in the Yoel Romero fight as well, a little bit, and also the Israel Adesanya fight. Marvin Vettori looks to have very good power. He's an extremely good counterpuncher, decent hand speed, defensively responsible, moves pretty well. I think that he would most likely knock out Paulo Costa within 3 rounds. And maybe that's an over-exaggeration, but in my mind, it's not. I think that most likely he would beat Paulo Costa. Now, there's some other good fights out there that are also very interesting. Jared Cannonier is a fight overall to where that'd be interesting, because Jack Hermansson got dominated against Jared Cannonier. And if you're able to dominate Jared Cannonier, that would be even another good name to his resume. Jared Cannonier is a very underrated fighter. He kind of goes under the specs of a lot of people, but, a lot of people, he gets missed in the specs. But when it comes down to it, that'd be a great win. Kelvin Gastelum maybe even. But a fight that really intrigues me for Marvin Vettori, if he is able to get past Paulo Costa or some of these other guys, like I expect that he will. I would favor him over Jared Cannonier, and I would favor him over Paulo Costa. I would, The fight that really intrigues me before he would maybe possibly fight an Israel Adesanya for the middleweight title is a Robert Whittaker fight. Because Robert Whittaker is patient. He's a very decent counterpuncher. He's very powerful himself. And when it comes down to it, Robert Whittaker has great stamina. So I need to see if, Marvin Vettori would be able to handle that. That is going to be the biggest fight for him possibly later on down the line before he faces Israel Adesanya. And some people might say, well, duh, when it comes down to the overall. But when it comes down to it, I felt like I had to say that because some people might feel it's Costa, some people might feel it's somebody else. When it comes down to it, Robert Whittaker, just with the style and the gas tank that he has, someone also that can knock you out with one punch as well, that might be the biggest challenge for him. So it's interesting. But I was very impressed with Marvin Vettori in this fight. The takedown defense, which was one of the questions I had about him, was excellent. Great counterpunching ability, great striking ability, great power, great speed. Very defensively responsible, moving very well. Now, he did get hit a certain amount of times in this fight, but for him being tired, he wasn't just plodding around like Paulo Costa when Paulo Costa gets tired. When he got tired, he was still moving. He was still defensively responsible. and I was very impressed with what I saw. So that's really about it for this video. I was not planning to do a review, but I decided to because not only would some people maybe possibly like to see it, but I felt that it was the right thing to do because I was very impressed by Marvin Vettori's performance against a very tough fighter. So it is what it is. But anyways, that's really about it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to y'all later, and we'll see what's in store for Marvin Vettori and also Jack Hermansson later on down the line. So I'm out for now. Great talking to you guys. I'll talk to y'all later.